Business Now and Business Weekend, we've regularly documented that Australia's productivity has slipped alarmingly in the past decade. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, we spoke with the chair of the Productivity Commission, Michael Brennan, who explained that one big challenge is to improve productivity in our services industries, which are labour heavy. Now, some answers to this problem might be found in a report by the Productivity Commission today. This is its second interim report in a 5-year inquiry, and this one looks at Australia's data and digital economy. Commissioner Dr. Stephen King joins me now. And Stephen, thanks for your time. First up, I thought that Australia ranked highly in terms of its digital uptake. So what did you discover in this inquiry?
Thanks, Ross. So Australia does really well in terms of some areas of the digital economy. Most businesses are connected to the internet. A lot of businesses doing commerce through the internet. The uptake of cloud technology is fantastic, but we also found significant gaps. Data analytics is an area where we're falling behind. If you look at the internet, then we have great connectivity, but we don't have great speeds by international standards, and it's not necessarily as reliable as business needs to be able to move forward. So we found gaps. We think those gaps need to be addressed.
OK, so the timing of this report coming out is coincidental, but also probably in some ways delicious, because they've got a job summit next week that's going to look at these areas of training and skills in Australia. Clearly, what you're identifying is these areas of artificial intelligence, of data analytics. These are skills gaps in Australia that need to be filled pretty quickly.
Indeed, Ross. We've got gaps in pretty much every area of the digital economy, from the IT help desk through to the people that can help business redesign their business to make the most of the changing technology. We can fill some of that skills gap through domestic training. We have a lot of IT graduates from university, for example, albeit there's a fair few of them that are international students who don't stay in Australia longer term. But even the best projections show that we're going to have a skills gap, certainly in the short term, the next 10 years. And we need to think about migration as well as training our own.
OK, so going back to that issue that Michael Brennan and I spoke about, the services industry is the area where really Australia has lagged in terms of productivity. It is actually adopting the digital economy that is really going to drive the productivity and maybe overcome some of the skills shortages and the labour shortages that we have in very basic areas here in Australia.
That's correct. To get productivity growth in Australia, we have to think about productivity growth in services. It's 80% of our GDP, it's 90% of our employment. Now, that's harder than the traditional areas of manufacturing and agriculture. And to do it, we have to work out ways where services can be delivered smarter. Part of that is the internet, and we saw that through COVID. Part of it is also going to be a better use of data, a better coordination of services. And a lot of those are government services.
So then you come back to the STEM, sort of, if you like, educational streams. The question is whether there is enough emphasis on trying to get young people into these areas to fill these skills shortages, gaps, and whether, again, this is a part of Australia's solution to what is quite clearly going to be a deficiency if we don't address it shortly.
Certainly getting more people into IT courses, into communications courses, into those digital courses that we are going to need going forward, is part of the solution. Unfortunately, we've seen a drop-off in recent years. For example, the number of people doing vet courses. We've seen the private sector through vendor courses, which are unaccredited, trying to fill that gap. There's a lot of training going on, but we're not going to get there just by training domestically. We have to think more broadly, and that means being part of the international market for digital and data labour.
One other aspect that you identify here is really some of the gaps in rural and regional Australia. And you say that this is an area where perhaps private enterprise will not be enough to try and actually fill some of the gaps, especially in internet speeds, especially in the way in which you go about sort of building this. So is this something that government itself will have to invest in alongside the private sector?
Government is already investing in improving regional and remote connectivity. However, it's not clear that they're doing it in the best possible way. We have multiple programs, the NBN, the Mobile Black Spots program, the Regional Connectivity program. It's not necessarily clear that the money is going to the places that best need it. And we think that a better way forward is for the government to use not just the NBN and its traditional methods, but also to draw on the resources of the private companies that are starting to roll out their own infrastructure, sometimes satellite infrastructure in these areas. We suggest that the government does that through a tender mechanism to make sure that the right internet is available universally where it's needed.
Because the answer to that is education opportunities, even health opportunities, but then business opportunities are not limited to the big cities that have the best internet speeds, that have the best talent in those pools. That's the key.
That is indeed the key, Ross. COVID was eye-opening for many people in terms of working out what we can do through that internet connectivity, through working smarter. And as you noted, part of that was health, telehealth. Part of that was education. And they will move forward. We will see more and more progress in those areas. But also, part of it was working from home. And home doesn't have to be Melbourne, Sydney or Brisbane. Home can be Broken Hill. Home can be a remote community. And by enabling jobs and business to connect better across this country, we can get a productivity dividend that is going to be pretty useful in the future.
Dr. Stephen King, Commissioner with the Productivity Commission, I appreciate your time on the program today.
Thanks, Ross.